Welcome to the Dolly Incorporated Clone Rehabilitation System. Your Premium 1000 Clone Insurance Plan has been activated due to the death of your source body. Please do not be alarmed, as you are currently initiating the rehabilitation process to facilitate maximum utility of your new clone. Rest assured, the process is entirely safe. There will be no major physical or psychological differences between your source body and your clones. You will now undergo your rehabilitation program, which is included as part of your Premium 1000 insurance plan. Now that you have been cloned, Dominion law states that clones which have not had their entire memories transferred intact are barred from resuming the occupation of their source body before its death. Under the Zero Unemployment Act, all citizens of the Dominion are to register their organizational affiliations or occupations. First, please search for your faction by clicking on the arrow buttons. There are three main classifications for factions in the Dominion: the Dominion agencies, corporations, and clans. Once you have found your faction, please confirm your registration by clicking on the Confirm button. Through our custom genetics program, you are entitled to select your appearance to allow you to start a new life from scratch with a completely different body, or to carry out aesthetic improvements on the original appearance of your source body. You have the option to change your physical features, including your hairstyle, hair color, skin tone, facial features, facial growth, and even your gender. Furthermore, you have the option of selecting the clothes your clone will be dressed in upon completion of the cloning process. You can choose from a variety of trench coats, tunics, shirts, and t-shirts, as well as trousers, skirts, and shoes, all of various colors. Note that whilst there are many clothing types available for selection, they will ultimately be limited to the uniform of the faction you have selected prior to this point in the cloning process. Upon completion of the cloning process, you may feel disoriented with regards to coordinating and moving your new clone body. Rest assured, your new body is of the highest quality, and you will be able to walk, run, jump, crouch, sit, and lie down without the hindrances that your source body may have had due to disease and illnesses. Once you have gotten accustomed to these simple motor tasks, you will likely find it necessary to utilize the vortex gates that enable instant transport between the colonies littered across the galaxy. All that is required is for you to locate a vortex gate and simply enter the vortex field within the gate. Upon entering the vortex gate, your consciousness taps into the vortex network, and you will access what is known as the star map. Here you will be able to select the colony or city you wish to be transported to. On every colony and city, there are terminals that perform various functions that are essential to your daily life. There are storage terminals, market terminals, mining terminals, production terminals, medical terminals, and apartment terminals. Storage terminals allow you to access your storage account. These storage accounts are local to each colony, and you will have to use the transport function in the storage terminal to move items between your storages on different colonies. You can also transfer items to other people through this terminal. Finally, the storage terminal is where you can place any number of items on the market for sale for any price you wish. As with the storage accounts, each colony has its own independent market. Market terminals allow you to purchase items designated for sale on a given colony's market by other citizens of the Dominion. There are functions that allow you to search for the specific item you wish to purchase. You can search for the specific type of item, such as weapons, clothes, food, and many more. Limit your search based on the price, quality, as well as the remaining durability of the item. After finding the specific item you wish to purchase, you will have to select a seller to purchase from. Under the seller's market entry, you will see the number of units of that item he has for sale. Once you have chosen a seller, you can move on to select the number of units you wish to purchase. Mining terminals facilitate the mining of raw materials, and production terminals facilitate the refinement of raw materials to produce production materials or components and production of items. Due to the fact that the different colonies are endowed with different raw materials, mining terminals will only display what is available to be mined on that specific colony. To begin mining, you must select the quality to be mined, followed by selecting which raw material to be mined, and finally, the quantity to be mined. Once you have selected these steps, what is known as the mining process is initiated. Each mining process will yield single units of whatever raw materials you have selected at regular intervals, indicated by the progress meter. Production terminals require that you have sufficient stock of the relevant raw materials, production materials, and/or production components in your storage on the same colony the terminal is in use on. Every single production material, component, and final product has what is known as production schemes, which are essentially recipes that spell out what is required for the refinement or production process to be completed successfully. Depending on the quality of the item you wish to refine or produce, the yield will vary. Generally, higher quality items will require more raw materials, production materials, and/or production components per unit refined or produced. For both mining and production terminals, the processes can be sped up by increasing the energy and cooling used, or slowed down by doing the opposite. Typically, a good balance between the energy cooling levels will result in an optimal effectiveness level. This effectiveness meter corresponds with the speed of the process. Furthermore, you have 2 production slots and 2 mining slots. Each slot allows you to initiate a single process in it. Note that both production and refinement processes share the production slots. Medical terminals facilitate the recovery of health, stamina, and consciousness for a nominal sum. Depending on the scheme selected, the rate of recovery as well as what statistics will be recovered will vary. Typically, the most expensive scheme has the fastest recovery rate. And finally, we have the apartment terminals. Here you will be able to purchase a wide variety of accommodations for yourself, enter the accommodations belonging to yourself or others, and enter your department's headquarters. One of the most important devices you will encounter will be the universal communicator. This allows you to communicate effectively to the people around you or the people with whom you are associated with in one way or another. First, we have the general chat function, which allows you to communicate only with people who are in your immediate vicinity. Secondly, we have the private chat function, which allows you to communicate with your friends. However, for this to work, you will have to add your friends to your friends list. Unless you select a single friend to chat via the friends list, any outgoing messages will be visible to everyone on your friends list. Next, we have the department chat function, which allows you to chat with the other members of your department, which are smaller organizations within the faction you have joined. The next function is probably the most important and most often used one of all. That is the faction chat function. This function allows you to communicate with all other members of your faction, which is imperative for new members to integrate successfully into their new faction and subsequently with society at large. This is typically the first place you should ask for help if necessary. This is the group chat function, which allows communication between members of groups. Groups are how members of factions can band together to complete objectives which work towards the goals specified by the faction leadership. Finally, we have the help chat function, which allows players to communicate with game masters when they require assistance that only game masters can render. This chat function is unique because what is typed here is only viewable by game masters, hence everything discussed will remain confidential. Installed in every clone is a simple set of equipment that allows you to keep track of your personal vital statistics anytime and anywhere. The most important statistic is your health. As you get injured, this red bar will decrease. Upon complete exhaustion of this red bar, your active clone will be considered terminated, and the process to fully activate your new clone will be initiated. To replenish your health, you may either seek treatment at a healing terminal or use a med kit. Next, we have your measurements for stamina. You can lose stamina through two main methods: movement activities such as jumping and running, and being hit by weapons which are designed to drain one's stamina. You will be able to run and jump as long as you have stamina. However, running out of stamina will mean that you will neither be able to jump nor run, and you will be forced to walk or rest until your stamina is regenerated. Note that jumping naturally consumes far more stamina than simply running. You can replenish your stamina either through staying still, sitting, or lying down, or replenishing it at a medical terminal. This is the measurement interface of your bioenergy level. Bioenergy is the electrical energy that your body contains naturally, which is substantial enough to power implants such as energy shield implants and night vision implants. Your bioenergy level can either be consumed by the use of implants or drained by weapons which are capable of doing so. You may only replenish your bioenergy by applying a device which can restore your natural electrical energy levels called a biocell. Next, we have your level of consciousness. Your level of consciousness will be depicted by a change in color of the display for this parameter. This parameter will only be affected when you are attacked by Dominion agents who employ the use of stun weaponry such as tasers. Once your level of consciousness is affected by such weaponry, you will experience visual and motor disorientation past a certain threshold. Once it falls below an even lower threshold, you will lose all ability to move your body coherently, as well as suffer severe visual disorientation, and hence make it possible for Dominion agents to arrest you and incarcerate you in the De Morgan's Castle prison facility. Your level of consciousness will naturally return to you over a short period of time, as long as you are not being concurrently attacked by stun weaponry whose effects outstrip your natural rate of consciousness regeneration. Finally, we have your armor. The graphic display shows the durability of armor that remains. It will show a strong blue for armor that has full durability, and will have an increasingly dim and translucent blue as the armor loses durability due to wear and tear. Not wearing any armor for that specific body part will simply show up as gray on the display. Included with every clone is a trademark interface that connects automatically to the data networks of your faction and the Dominion. Here, you can open up the Faction Manager, which allows you to see what your faction's stances towards the other factions are, what your faction's economic standing is, what goals your faction leadership has decided to pursue, and who your fellow faction members are, as well as being able to promote, demote, or punish other faction members once you have reached an appropriate rank. Furthermore, you can take part in internal polls of any kind, depending on what your faction leadership creates. If you are part of a department or group within your faction, you will also be able to see more details about them with these two buttons. One of the most important features here is the email function of your Universal Communicator, which allows you to send messages to anyone, anywhere, and at any time, as long as you know the recipient's full name. On top of all this, you can see all the important statistics that relate to you. These are your name, your faction, your current rank within that faction, which is entirely decided upon by your superiors in the faction, your faction and universal credits, which will be explained later, your number of clones remaining, which have to be topped off when they run low, your experience points, which determine only your eligibility to be promoted, but does not guarantee it, your penalty points, which you earn when you commit a crime, as well as your movement speed and the weight you are currently carrying. Finally, we have your current inventory. You can carry any item here, although carrying too many items or even a few very heavy items will result in your movement speed dropping drastically. You can transfer your items to and from your storage accounts, equip items from your inventory, as well as dematerialize items you no longer wish to retain. There are 8 major factions in the Dominion. These are the Law Enforcement Department and the Freedom Defense Corps, which are grouped together as Dominion agencies, the Colonization and Mining Guild, the Eurocorps and Vortex Incorporated, which are mega corporations, and the Guardians of Mankind, the Brotherhood of Shadows, and the Mercenaries of the Blood, which are classified by the Dominion as clans. Each of these factions has a distinct and unique role to play in the Dominion, and these roles manifest themselves in the choices of the faction leaders as well as the actions of the faction as a whole. Most of the time, the decision to go to war and engage in combat with members of other factions lies with the top leadership of each faction. However, there is nothing that can stop one from attacking another person in cold blood, revenge, and even with little or no reason. However, depending on the situation and the policies of the faction you have joined, there may be repercussions in the form of punishments issued by your faction leadership, not to mention the possibility of the Law Enforcement Department enforcing Dominion law if they chance upon your act of violence, and subsequently arresting you. Individuals who decide to defy all the social norms and go on killing sprees against members of all factions for little or no reason will often find themselves in the unenviable position of being hunted with the full force of multiple factions. The reason why this is done is because every single member of the various factions are seen as representatives of their factions, and their behavior consequently reflects on their faction. Indeed, wars have been initiated because small groups of faction members defy the orders of their faction leaders and attack members of other factions with little regard for the bigger picture. One way that a faction's leaders can direct their subordinates is by the faction goals that they put up. These goals can be seen in the faction manager page in your interface and can include directives such as a takeover of a colony or city currently held by another faction, to defend a colony or world currently held by your faction, to achieve economic dominance on a given colony or world, and many more. The goals that your faction leadership implement will automatically be translated into personal and group objectives which contribute directly to the fulfillment of the goals. One of the ways by which you can earn universal credits and experience points from your faction is through the completion of objectives. These objectives can be completed either by yourself or as part of a group. As you advance in the completion of an objective, you will be assigned what are known as faction credits. You will receive a payout from your faction at the end of every day that is based on the amount of faction credits you have accumulated as a proportion of the total amount of faction credits paid out by your faction to every member of your faction. For example, if your faction makes a profit of 1,000 universal credits and has given out a total of 10 faction credits, of which 8 faction credits have been earned by you and 2 faction credits by the other members of your faction, you will earn 800 universal credits at the end of the day. Both the individual and group objectives are generated from a pool which is defined by the faction goals that the leadership sets. The only difference between individual and group objectives is that individual objectives are generated completely randomly from the objective pool, whereas being the leader of a group allows you to select your objectives to some extent, although this depends on your current rank. Initially, group leaders will be able to choose 5 objective categories that they wish the group to complete. Because these categories have subcategories within them that cannot be chosen at this point in time, there will be some degree of uncertainty in what exact objectives will be generated. If the group leaders have been promoted to an appropriate rank in their faction, they will be able to choose 5 objective subcategories, which will allow them to choose the exact objectives they wish to complete in their group. You will receive rewards in the form of faction credits and experience points for every point you contribute to filling up the counter that is provided for each objective, and a small bonus of faction credits and experience points once you complete that specific objective. The 5 objectives that are generated are referred to as an objective set. To complete an objective set and receive a fresh set of objectives, you must complete 3 objectives in that set. Upon the completion of each objective set, you will receive a bonus that comprises a significant amount of faction credits and experience points. There are 2 main means by which a citizen of the Dominion can earn universal credits for his personal use. The first is through the wages that your faction will pay for completing objectives that contribute to the goals of the faction as mentioned before. The second is through commerce. This is simply the act of making a profit through the sale of raw materials, production components, and finished products at a price higher than it was obtained at the market, mining, or production terminals mentioned earlier. For example, you might have mined the mineral bauxite for 50 universal credits. To make a profit, you need only put them on sale at a price higher than the mining price, but at a price still reasonable enough for others to consider buying it. For example, pricing 500 units of bauxite at 75 universal credits will hence earn you a profit of 12,500 universal credits, which is enough to purchase many items. Note that every transaction through the market terminals, as well as mining and production processes, will be subject to taxes, which will cut into your profit margin. So it's usually best to conduct your business on a colony that has favorable tax rates to your faction, which are dependent on the colony's diplomatic relationship with your own faction. The exception for this are transactions through the market terminal, which are subject to a flat rate of taxation imposed by the Dominion, which will not change regardless of your faction's relationship with the Dominion agencies like the Law Enforcement Department and the Freedom Defense Corps. Because of this, some people have taken to engaging in commerce outside of the official market system through trading directly with other individuals. Through this, you can avoid being taxed and make a larger profit, as well as possibly get a higher or lower price, depending on whether you are buying or selling, through negotiating directly with the other party. However, there are numerous disadvantages with this. First, you can only trade items that are in your personal inventory, which means they are liable to be lost if you are attacked and that clone is terminated. Secondly, the fact that you can only trade items in your inventory means that you can only trade a very small number of items at a time, limited to how much you can carry. And the final disadvantage is that you must find a suitable buyer or seller directly, which is far more inconvenient than the official market system, which displays all the sellers for any given item and is accessible by all buyers. In the chaotic state of affairs in the Dominion, the Self-Defense Act, passed by the Dominion Senate, has given every citizen the right to bear arms and don body armor for their personal protection. There are two main types of firearms, ballistic and energy-based. Ballistic weapons fire actual projectiles, such as bullets, whereas energy weapons draw on an energy cell powering the weapon to discharge a burst of pure energy. Both weapon types have their advantages and disadvantages. Ballistic weapons of the same type tend to be lighter than energy ones, but can be stopped, relatively effectively, by individuals using shield implants. Energy weapons are conversely relatively heavier, but the nature of the particles being discharged allow them to be far more effective against shield implant users. Another way to classify firearms is by their effect. Whereas some weapons are designed for maximum destructive power against people, there are others that are designed for use in a support capacity by draining an individual's stamina, depleting his bioenergy, or even doing large amounts of damage to machinery. There are also other weapons that are restricted to the Dominion agencies, such as the Law Enforcement Department, that are able to stun an individual for the purpose of arresting him for crimes committed. On top of firearms, there are also weapons such as grenades, which can do severe physical damage or drain the bioenergy of people caught in the radius of the pulse, as well as knives, which allow for protection at melee ranges. There is also a piece of equipment that is built to look like a weapon, but actually heals individuals that are hit by its energy discharge, commonly called a healing gun or metagun. For protection against damage being done to an individual, the most common solution is to wear personal body armor. There are various types of armors that vary in weight and what sort of damage they protect best against. For example, some armors may reduce the efficiency of stun weaponry of the Dominion agencies, whereas others may be very efficient at reducing the efficiency of lethal weaponry. It is best to find the combination of armor that best suits your personal style of usage, such as heavier armors when you expect to be in combat situations, or lighter armors when you do not wish to engage in combat, but would rather it protect you just long enough for you to run away from the situation quickly. An alternative to using body armor is using a shield implant. As mentioned earlier, it is very effective at reducing the damage done by ballistic rounds. However, it has its drawbacks as well. It prevents you from wearing body armor on your torso. as well as being much heavier than body armor. Additionally, it requires bioenergy to function, which means running out of bioenergy will leave you much more vulnerable to an attack. There are other implants other than the shield implant, all of which also require bioenergy to function. Each implant has different functions and are typically attached to different parts of your body, which means you can wear more than one implant at a time. There are implants such as the night vision implant, which allows the wearer to see clearly in low light conditions, or the resistance amplifier implant, which facilitates natural healing without medkits, although at a cost of bioenergy, and many more. With the purchase of your clone insurance policy, you no longer need to fear the menacing weapons being carried around by the citizens of the Dominion. Death is no longer permanent as long as you have sufficient clones in stock. Upon the death of a clone, a signal is sent to our cloning facility to initiate the cloning process. Your stock of clones will decrease by a single unit every time this process is repeated. The cloning process will take only a short period of time, during which your memories will be implanted into your new clone. More importantly, your body will be revived from its cryogenic state by chemical processes to restart your heart and internal circulation. However, it is important to note that your body will not be at full health at this stage, as it has only just emerged from cryogenic storage. You will have to undergo further medical treatment at a medical terminal or by use of a med kit to completely recover from these effects. Your clone insurance plan includes a clause which allows our company to debit your universal credit account automatically once your stock of clones has been completely depleted. But we will charge a significant surcharge for every clone purchased this way for the service. It is imperative to note that once your universal credit account has insufficient funds for the purchase of a new clone when your stock of clones has been completely depleted, none will be purchased for you. This will result in your permanent death, and all of your cloning information will be purged from our systems. This will mean that you will cease to exist from then on. After the culinary revolution of 2032, food production companies began producing recipes which included large amounts of vital minerals and vitamins under a new initiative by the Dominion Health Authority. As expected by the DHA, these heavily fortified foods began making people more active and generally healthier upon consumption. Scientifically documented results included increased stamina recovery, greater muscle efficiency resulting in greater strength, more efficient use of bioenergy with the use of implants, faster rates of natural healing, and faster recovery of consciousness. However, it is important to note that some of these foods display certain negative side effects when consumed, although these are usually minute and are of little consequence.
Greetings from the Brotherhood of Shadows. We wish to introduce to you something special. Forget about food. We have the real stuff here that will make you feel like a superhuman, move like a superhuman, and fight like a superhuman. We have pills that will make you impervious to physical pain, make you run like the wind, charge you up with so much bioenergy, you'll be like a walking energy cell. Make you so strong you can lift a vortex gate, and many more. We have appropriated the recipes from the bourgeois capitalist pigs in the pharmaceutical companies and produce it for use by all. They may come with some minor side effects when you use them, but it is more than worthwhile when you consider the benefits you will reap from consuming them. Just don't get caught by the law enforcement department. Our brothers who did get caught have told many horrible tales of their time in De Morgan's castle.
As required by the Dominion Department of Justice, we'll now be presenting a short section on the legal system in the Dominion. The Dominion's legal system is based on what is known as penalty points, which can be viewed through your clone's interface screen. You will automatically be assigned penalty points via two primary means. First of all, through combat. If you attack any individual without being attacked by him first, you will be assigned a small amount of penalty points. You will receive varying amounts of penalty points for the murder of another person, Generally, you will receive greater amounts of penalty points for the murder of colleagues from the same faction and individuals from factions that are diplomatically friendly to your faction, and the least for the murder of individuals from factions deemed to be enemies by your faction. The other way by which you can be assigned penalty points is through being caught with illegal items such as banned narcotics and weapons by members of the law enforcement department. Officers of the LED will do so through the use of a scanner implant, which can detect the presence of illegal items anywhere on the target's body. Upon detection of such items, you will be automatically assigned penalty points for every unit of such item, and will be notified on this through email. Once you have been assigned penalty points, the law enforcement department's officers will be able to arrest you either by using stun weaponry to force you into submission, or by you willingly surrendering to be arrested. Either way, you will be transported to De Morgan's Castle prison facility, where you will have to complete special objectives in order to reduce the amount of penalty points you have. Once you have worked off all of your penalty points, you will be permitted to leave the De Morgan's Castle prison facility. If you have been assigned a significant amount of penalty points, you will be assigned a Most Wanted status by the Dominion. This will result in severe penalties for you, such as being able to be hunted by any citizen of the Dominion without any penalty for them, as well as a bounty being paid out to them if they manage to kill or arrest you. As your amount of penalty points increases, you will eventually no longer be able to purchase any new clones, and after a certain point, your stock of clones will be locked down by the Dominion, and a single death will result in your permanent death. The law enforcement department wishes to remind all citizens that any escape attempts will be met with appropriate action to prevent it. Prisoners who may have wandered out of the prison area by accident are not to cross the boundaries of the security barriers, as it will be considered an escape attempt and may result in force being used against you. To facilitate greater efficiency of the individuals in working towards their faction's goals, you are encouraged to join a group with your colleagues. Through cooperation between members of a faction, objectives can be completed in a far more efficient manner by completing more objectives in a shorter time. As objectives reflect the goals that the faction leadership has implemented for action, greater efficiency in the completion of objectives naturally means the faction goals will be achieved in a shorter period of time. Furthermore, the individuals working within the group will benefit far more than they would alone. In a group, you'll receive faction credits and experience points from not only the objectives that you are currently working on, but also the exact amount of faction credits and experience points that each and every one of your group members collect. Hence, if you work in a group of 4, you should be able to gain 4 times more faction credits and experience points. So, the larger your group, the more efficient it is at earning your faction credits and experience points. However, it is important to note that this is dependent on how hard each group member is working. Because the objectives get harder to complete when there are more individuals in the groups, the failure of any group member to contribute effectively to the completion of the group objectives will result in a noticeable drop in the efficiency of the entire group. Hence, players that are not contributing to the group will often be forcibly removed from the group by the group leader in order to maintain optimum efficiency for that group. Once you have been promoted past the rank of trainee and become a fully fledged member of your faction, you'll be able to create groups. Other members of your faction can join your group by invitation or their own accord. You will also be able to choose a minimum of 5 types of objectives for your group and the colony you wish to complete them on, although this is limited by the goals of your faction leadership. The objectives generally have several sub-objectives within them, which you will not be able to control at this point. Once you are promoted to an appropriate rank, you will then be able to have even more control over what objectives you wish to complete by being able to choose 5 specific sub-objectives. Departments are the highest level of organization in the factions, and are led only by the top leaders in your faction. The functions of these departments are completely decided upon by the department leaders and vary from faction to faction. You will only be able to join a department upon invite by the department leader, but the exact way to earn an invitation to a department also varies from faction to faction and also between different departments in the same faction. Upon joining a department, you will gain access to the department chat function in your Universal Communicator and be able to participate in department-wide polls. You will also be able to access the official department headquarters that is chosen by the department leader via any terminal on any world. There are many types of accommodations in the Dominion, ranging from mere thousands of universal credits to those that cost millions. Personal accommodation is not provided for by your faction, and you must pay for any such accommodation by using funds from your personal universal credit account. Within each apartment is a complimentary multicom terminal provided by the Dominion for your personal use. Amongst other things, the multicom terminal allows you to change faction, edit your profile, and change the entry code for that specific apartment. Please note that any apartments that are purchased will only be accessible on the colony they were purchased on. To access your apartment, you will need to locate an apartment terminal and select your apartment. You will also be able to access the apartment of another individual as long as you know the colony it's on, the unit number of the apartment, and the entry code for that apartment. On every inhabited colony, you will come across secured areas which house the colony control terminal and are typically enclosed in rooms with the highest security levels. These areas have restricted access via security barriers, which can only be opened by members of the faction which owns that colony. Even if you belong to the owning faction, you may not be able to open all the security barriers if you do not have the security clearance that comes with higher ranks. However, it is not impossible for individuals who are not from the faction owning a colony to open the security barriers. The security barrier terminals can be hacked to gain access for their entire faction for a limited period of time through the use of hacking interfaces. However, the difficulty and time it will take to complete a hacking attempt varies, being more difficult and taking more time for barriers with higher level security. The actual process of hacking entails creating alternative circuits to trigger the barrier controls by linking up predetermined points as displayed by the hacking device. There are two screens, the macro scale screen on the left and the micro scale screen on the right. The final goal will be to complete the circuit by linking up all the points on the macro scale screen. To do so, you must manipulate the micro scale screen by linking up the points. It is important to note that the security systems have built-in firewalls and anti-hacking mechanisms that can either delay or completely negate your hacking attempt, which may or may not be visible by your hacking device. Note that the lower quality hacking devices may not be able to detect these defense mechanisms, while high quality hacking devices typically will detect most of them. If you fail in an attempt at hacking a security terminal, another built-in defense mechanism will discharge enough electricity to completely destroy your hacking device, regardless of its quality. If you ever require support of any kind from the Face of Mankind support team, such as problems encountered with other players, you have two options. First of all, you can attempt to talk to a Game Master directly through the Help Chat function in your Universal Communicator. While the Game Masters do their best to be available to assist you there at all times, there may be situations where they are unable to help. In such situations, you can use the alternative method, which is submitting a support ticket at http://support.fomportal.com.